Hello and welcome back to my garden. In today's video, we're talking all about fall planting. It's that time of year, the weather is changing from summer and really warm, hot temperatures to fall and cooler temperatures, and that means we get to grow different types of veggies. And I'm really excited about that because, like I've said before, this is my first year gardening. I went all in. I wanted to try as many veggies as possible, and I'm really excited to be able to try some really nice fall veggies. So there is a little bit of a difference when it comes to veggies and what type of season they grow best in. You've got your cool weather veggies and you've got your warm weather veggies. And your warm weather veggies is what you've been growing all summer long. Your tomatoes, your cucumbers, some herbs do well in the warm weather, squash, your zucchini, all of those things do really well in warm weather temperatures. Fall and cool weather temperatures brings things like carrots and radishes and peas and lettuce and herbs and all kinds of fun things. Broccoli, cauliflower, kohlrabi, all kinds of fun veggies that I'm really excited to try today. Today, we're going to be planting a few different things, and the way I plant the seeds depends on what veggie it is. So first I thought I'd go over all of the different seeds we're going to be planting for our fall weather crop. First, we've got some Triton purple stem radishes. I've tried radishes before, but not this variety, so I'm really excited to try this one. This I'm going to be able to harvest in about 4 to 6 weeks. So I'm really excited to try some radishes. So there's different ways to plant radishes. You can direct seed right into your garden, or you can do transplants like I'm going to be doing today. And really the reason why I'm going to be planting in containers and transplanting later is because I'm still waiting on some space to free up in my gardens. My gardens are still doing well and still going strong with my warm weather crops. I've had to pull out a few plants here and there, but for the most part my gardens are still full, so this allows me a few extra weeks to get my cool weather veggies started while my warm weather veggies are finishing off for the season. So next we're going to be planting some kohlrabi. I've actually never tried kohlrabi before, so I'm really excited to give this a try. This is going to take about 6 or 8 weeks. What that means when you're looking at the time to be able to harvest at the time of maturity for the plants that you're growing is you want to look at your first frost date and count backwards, and that'll tell you how much time before that first frost date you have to plant your cool veggies. Many plants will do well after those first few frosts as long as they're established in your garden. So really you want to look at that timeline for your first frost and count backwards to when you should be starting your plants. I actually think I'm starting a little bit late in the season, but it's my first year, I'm learning, I'm going to give it a go and see how it goes this year for me and make notes to do better next year. And that's all this is about, is a learning process. It's fun, it's a hobby for me. It's been so much fun gardening this year. I can't wait to do it again next year. We're also going to be planting some carrots. These are a smaller variety carrot. They're only going to grow about 5 or 6 inches long, and they're going to be ready to harvest in about 8 to 10 weeks. So we're going to try some carrots today. We're going to do one herb as well, and we're going to plant some dill. Dill is an amazing herb. You can use it for so many things, and it's a really great cool weather herb. One of the lettuces we're going to be planting today is spinach. There's some lettuces and greens that do really well in both warm and cool weather temperatures, and then there's some greens and herbs that really only do well in cool weather, and dill is one of those. It really will burn up in the heat and it won't last through those hot summer temperatures, so we're going to plant some dill today for the fall. Another green we're going to plant is a collard green. This I'm really excited to grow fresh in my garden. I can't wait to try the collard greens. And then we're also going to plant some peas. We're going to plant some sugar snap peas. This is my favorite variety of pea. I've harvested so many already this season. I was able to get some planted right when I began my garden at the beginning of the season. I started my garden mid-June, which is actually really late for us, but I started on my flower gardens and my lawn care in the spring, and then moved on and decided I wanted to do veggies. So I was a little late to start this season, but I did get some peas planted and I'm excited to plant more. And then we're also going to plant another variety of pea. This is the Oregon sugar pod pea. So this is another edible pod pea, and I'm really excited to grow this one as well. And then we're going to grow cabbage and cauliflower. These are really great cool weather veggies. I'm going to be planting an early snowball cauliflower. So these have smaller heads, and it's not going to take as long to mature, about 50 days for this one. And we're going to be trying a red acre cabbage, again another smaller variety of cabbage, and I'm really excited to see the color of this one. And this is going to take about 60 to 70 days, so a little bit longer than the cauliflower, but I think as long as they're established in my garden, I'll have plenty of time for a harvest this season. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to be planting our seeds in. I've got two types of containers here today. I've got these 4 sets of containers. They're a little bit smaller, great for a lot of the veggies I'm going to be planting today. And then I've also got a couple of these larger containers. I'm going to be using these specifically for the larger veggies, so the cabbage and the cauliflower, maybe a couple others. We'll see. We can plant definitely some dill in here and get a nice harvest of dill out of a larger container like this. So when you're filling your containers, you want to make sure that your container has some holes on the bottom of it for drainage. This just makes sure that your soil won't get waterlogged and your roots won't get root rot or even dampen off, which you absolutely don't want. That's when you get sudden death of your seedlings. So you want to make sure, again, that you start with really nice moist soil, and you're just going to pack it into your container. And then I do something called thumb packing, which is very lightly packing the soil because you don't want any gaps or air spaces really to be too large. So I like to just pack it lightly. You want a nice amount of soil in there for your root system to grow. And the same if you're using a larger container. Same thing, you kind of just pack it in lightly as you go. Make sure you have a nice amount of soil in there for your little seedlings. Okay, so let's get to planting. I'm going to start with the sugar snap peas. This is one of my favorite veggies, and I'm so excited to grow more. So we're going to start with the sugar snap peas. I'm going to be using these smaller containers for the sugar snap peas because I want to be able to grow a nice amount of peas. So I'm going to be using 2 or 3 of these containers for the peas. These peas are a nice size. They're pods. You just want to plant, we're going to plant 2 pods in each little container because if one seed doesn't germinate, hopefully the other one will. So these containers are definitely big enough for 2 seeds. And if they both germinate, we'll be able to keep them both as well. So I'm just pressing these seeds maybe about a ½ inch down into the soil and covering them lightly. You want to go about double down as wide as the seed approximately. Covering them lightly. And our seeds are planted. So you want to make sure that you label your seeds so that you don't forget what you have. They're not always easy to tell apart, especially when they're so small. So we're going to stick a tag with the name of the plant and the date we planted it right into our containers. Next, we'll do some of our other peas, our Oregon sugar pod peas, in these 3 containers. I'm really excited to try these peas. The sugar snap peas, the sugar and sugar snap peas were square, and these ones are round. And we're going to do the same thing with these seeds. We're going to pot 2 in each cell. Cover them lightly with soil. When we're done planting everything, we'll cover all of our cells and containers with a little extra soil to make sure they have plenty of soil to germinate. Next up is carrots, and I'm really excited to grow some carrots. Carrot seeds are really, really small, but they definitely need space 2 to 3 inches in the garden to be able to grow to full size. So you don't want to overseed your carrots, even though the seeds are so small. It's okay if you get the seeds too many in one cell. You can always trim them back. But these seeds are tiny. So the other thing to remember when planting seeds that are small is that you don't want them to be too down into the soil because they need light to germinate. So we're only going to press these into the soil lightly and cover them with a small amount of soil at the end. Next, we're going to be planting the kohlrabi, and I'm going to be using these 2 containers right here. Really, really excited to try this. And we're going to plant again. These are little round black seeds, and we're going to plant 2 per cell, not too deep. Again, it's okay if you drop 1 too many seeds in there. We're going to plant them, just push them down a little bit into the soil. And that's it. Super simple. Next up is our collard greens. For the collard greens, I'm actually only going to plant 2 per cell and then cut 1 back or split them. One of the things I'm learning as I grow these vegetables is just how large or how small everything gets. So I'm really playing a little bit of experimenting here, as this is my first year. It's really blown my mind, honestly, how large some of these veggies get. It's definitely a windy day today. Next up, we're going to be planting some dill. And dill is such an amazing herb. It's so aromatic. It's so good on so many things. I love it on salmon. I love it in salads. I love it on chicken. And what we're gonna do with the dill, these seeds are a decent size, but we're going to overseed this container. Dill can come up really nice and thickly. You wanna have lots of dill. You don't wanna just plant 1 or 2 seeds. So we're going to overseed this container so we have lots of dill. Push it down and we'll cover this lightly with soil. It's a little windy, so I'm just going to do it right now to make sure my seeds don't disappear. And label our container. Next, we're going to be planting the red acre cabbage. I'm really excited to see the color of this cabbage. We're going to be using these 2 containers here. We've got some nice little round black seeds. And we're just going to plant 2, maybe 3. We'll plant 3 per pot to make sure we get a good germination. One thing to remember when you're planting your seeds is just how much room you have in your garden. One thing I've done as I've expanded my garden is use the fabric grow bags that you can find on Amazon. They're really great for growing veggies if you've run out of space in your raised bed or in-ground gardens, because it just allows you to expand your garden and grow in pots, whether it be on your deck or around your garden space. It's a really great way to expand your garden. Next up, spinach. Now, I've only got a few containers left, so we're going to use these larger containers and overseed just a little bit, and then split the transplants later into separate plants. So this is what the spinach seeds look like, a little bit larger. We're going to plant 4 or 5 seeds per pot here, so that we get lots of spinach. Cover them up. And we've got one last seed to plant, and that is our radishes. These are the Triton purple stem radishes. I'm really excited to see the colors of these. We've got these last 3 containers here, the 4-cell containers. So we're going to plant 1 seed per container in these. Actually, we'll plant 2. That way we make sure we get, rule of thumb, always plant an extra seed to make sure you get that germination you need. And our seeds are planted. However, there's a few more steps to go before we can say we're finished with our seed. So remember, after you get your seeds planted, you want to lightly drop some soil on all of your containers. This is the pre-moistened soil. This is just going to make sure that all your seeds are covered, that they won't blow away. And to make sure your containers are nice and full. So once you've covered all of your containers with a little bit of extra soil, there's one more step before we're finished, and that's just to spray down your seeds. You want to make sure your soil is nice and moist for the seeds to germinate. So we're going to spray everything down with a nice light spray of water. And we're going to make sure that these containers stay moist for the seeds to germinate and grow well. Now, there's a couple things that I want you to consider when you're watering all of these trays, and that is to water from the bottom instead of the top. Once your seeds start to germinate and sprout, you want to make sure you're watering from the bottom for the water to soak up and really moisten that soil without creating disease or mold on top here by spraying from the top. You're going to create a more of a safe environment for your plants to grow. So how I like to do that is by taking any kind of tray and just placing them all inside. Filling the tray with water at the bottom and letting the water soak up to really get these containers nice and moist. You don't want your containers to completely dry out because that's just going to stress out your seedlings. The other thing is you don't want to keep water in the tray. So once your containers have soaked up the water they need, you want to drain out the rest of that water so they're not sitting in water all the time. There's 2 ways to tell when your containers need water. The first is its weight. When the container is really light, it's an indication that it needs water. When the soil has soaked up water and there's lots of moisture in there, your container is going to be heavier. And that your container needs water is by the color of the soil. Right now, the soil you can see is a really nice dark brown, it's nice and moist, and when it turns to a light brown, that's an indication that your soil needs water. Here's a little mustard green seedling that I have. You can tell that the edges of this are starting to get lighter brown. It doesn't need water quite yet, but it's going to need water soon. The other indication is that this container is still got some weight to it, so I know that it doesn't need water yet. These are the two things to look for when it comes to watering your containers. And that's it. We've planted the seeds for our fall garden. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. Share this video with your friends if you find this helpful. Comment down below and let me know what veggies you're going to be growing in your fall garden this season. I'm happy to learn all the tips and tricks you have for me, as this is my first year, and I'm really excited to get these veggies in the garden in just a few weeks. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.